Right, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar on mobility options. Just before I get into the webinar, just a couple of things. You should see obviously the presentation in front of you now, so hopefully that's fully visible to you. If you've got any issues, if you can just stick your hand up, and you notice on your screen console you've got a hand up button just to flag if there are any issues there. Also, I'm going to leave everyone on mute. That's basically so that obviously a lot of background noise comes in. It just makes it a little bit easier for us to focus on what I'm presenting. So I'm going to cover mobility options and the various ways that we can support mobility on either CIX or IP Edge. And we start off with, very simplistically, one that's often forgotten, which is hot desking, and the fact that with all IP 5000s, you have the ability to set the phone in hot desking mode. In which case, whenever the phone boots up, it will ask for a DN and then a password on that DN, and you can see that in the example of the handset in front of you there. Or you can program a code on the system, which #68, for example, is the one we use, where if you go up to any phone and hit #68, it logs that phone out, and then you can go into that screen and put your actual DN and password in. So that gives you the ability to turn a phone into a hot desking phone. So to some extent, that could be a mobility solution. If you work from the home, you work from office, you go into the office, you log in the office. If you did forget to leave your phone logged out at home, you can actually have forced login supported, which means it will actually force the other phone off the network, and that one will take the identity. So that's the first element of a possible mobility solution, depending obviously on what the customer is actually looking for. The second one comes in with DECT, and there's a number of options here. So we'll start off with the more simplistic options. We have a product that we're aware of out there called the Grandstream DP715. It's a very simple DECT SIP compliant system that we've done basic testing with. And there's a list of all the functionality you can use through it on our technical website that your technical department has access to. But very simply, with it, you can register up to 5 terminals with a base station, and you can run 4 concurrent calls through that base station. Handsets can register to a second base station, so you can have the ability to move from one base station to another. It's not quite as flexible as some, obviously, the higher-end solutions that will allow roaming across and the call to move and so on. But where this could work well is somebody who's got a couple of small businesses where they could have an access point in each one, and they just carry their handset between the two. And when they get to their other site, it logs back in and gives them their same extension again. Cost just roughly. You'll find the handset out there in the marketplace for about 50 quid, I think, trade. That's with the base station. If you're buying the handset only, I think it's about 30 quid or something. So it could be a fairly cost-effective solution there, where there's no Wi-Fi in the building and the key driver is just effectively a cheap mobile solution. Then it ticks that boxes. It makes and terminates calls, and it does the job. If you then want to move up, and obviously the price will move up with this, to more of an integrated DECT solution, then you could look at Toshiba's IP4100. This is a cordless DECT solution, which is SIP compliant. So you can have up to 30 terminals registering on a base, and you can have 10 concurrent calls through that base. That is if you've only got one base. If you move up to 2 bases, then you can only have 8 concurrent calls through a base, and obviously a multitude of bases, up to 40 bases. So you can build a very, very big network around that. The key thing is that it gives the user an easy way to roam around those base stations or around their business. The call will just move from access point to access point, and that's what the additional 2 channels are. When you go multi-channel and you drop from 10 to 8 on a base, the other 2 channels manage the maneuverability of the user and the handover from access point to access point. We target this at sort of larger offices with warehousing attached to it, car dealerships and so on, where again mobility is the driver. They don't have a wireless network that can carry voice, so a dedicated solution is the best choice. The base stations are PoE compliant, so you can power them off a PoE switch and just obviously hang them on the wall and so on. And so the handsets are a fairly nice integrated handset. Far more details on the handset, but this presentation is just keeping with the higher level overview on it. So the 4100 may well be a useful solution there on the DECT side. Above that, if you need a lot of handsets, and as we say here, this could be over 1,000 terminals with 30 speech channels through a base station, so it's a lot more scalable than the 4100, then you can look at the Polycom Kirk products, and we've tested the 4020, 4040, 5020, 5040 handsets. Where one of these might come in useful is you start to get ruggedized or semi-ruggedized options. And if a garage, for example, where they're out on the actual garage working area, then maybe more of a ruggedized handset or semi-ruggedized might be a better option for that. And that may well be where the Polycom Kirk comes in. So again, this is similar thing, customer with a mobility requirement, but hasn't got Wi-Fi. So again, we're putting DECT in, but they need more functionality in the 41 or more scalability, then Polycom Kirk will do that job. I'm showing another one. It's not really a handset. It relies obviously on a physical handset, but it does provide a mobility solution. Is something like the Plantronics Savvy W740 as well. Now this headset I'm actually using myself. I'm giving this presentation off it. I have it connected to my physical IPT. I also have it connected to a mobile, and it's also connected to the PC. So I'm actually using it for this webinar, but I can actually join a conference call with the office to this webinar at the moment with the headset bridging the connection between the two, which is quite a clever solution. Various wearing options. The key thing is has a range of over 120 meters, so it gives you the ability to roam around the office quite a bit there. And it is quite integratable into the PC. It has software that helps program it, run it, warn you your battery's running low, and so on. And I say it connects very nicely to my mobile phone as well. So the Savvy 740 is say quite a useful solution there if you want some form of mobility. And it really starts to boil down to what's the customer actually looking for out of this. That's the DECT-based versions of solutions. We then move into Wi-Fi, and there's a number of options sitting on the Wi-Fi side. First one is a product we've supported for some time, the Unidata WPU 7800. And this is a Wi-Fi based handset. As it says there, it supports B and G Wi-Fi, so it can support the WPS and WPS2 encryption levels and so on required for Wi-Fi. There's no limit to the amount that you can use on a wireless network, but what you would need to manage is the wireless network would need to have the bandwidth management to make sure, obviously, that it can carry the voice from the amount of handsets, but also it would need to make sure that roaming is available from handset to, across from base station to base station as the handset moves. And that will require a certain level of wireless network in place. Not all generic wireless networks can support that. So you may need either a fairly sophisticated wireless network, or if it's a customer who just wants one or two mobile options, then you could just put an access point in just for voice. That would keep the quality of service up, and it would act as a very cost-effective way of adding a mobility option to a small installation somewhere. So again, this would be for, as I've said, there's SMB customers looking for a low-cost solution. Mobility is a driver, but they either do have Wi-Fi or they could add Wi-Fi to give that functionality. Above that, and obviously the cost is quite a bit higher. I think these SpectraLink series handsets range anywhere from £400 to £600, but they are extremely ruggedized. They have safe options around them as well. They have a barcode scanner option to be added as well, and that adds an awful lot of functionality potentially for the right customer. And if I just bring up this next one, and hopefully this is streaming correctly for you. I'm not sure how the voice is coming over the internet, but certainly as we stream that, you can see with the kids stamping on it or playing football, kicking around a playground. It's a very, very solid, well put together handset. I think in a minute they're going to start throwing water all over it as well, which is an interesting way of demonstrating. I'll just give you a minute or so just to look at that. I'm going to drop it into water now as well. That's what you're watching now as it drops into water. and not something you would do with it, but yes, use it instead of a softball to play baseball with. So it very much is military standard construction to it. So again, that would be something, so I just flip back to it, that would be something to consider for a customer who was looking at that need to be robust, almost indestructible. They need something that can sit on Wi-Fi. You wouldn't need necessarily a DEC base station to go with it. It will sit on just a wireless network, but it will give you that ruggedization. And for retail environments, things like the barcode scanners or the man down function there is it detects if the person has actually fallen over, is immobile, isn't moving, and it'll sound an alarm off there. So it can also actually look after whether the personnel carrying it are active and mobile, which might work in some environments as well. So again, depends on the customer, depends on the solution requirement for that. So let's just skip through that. Also, another option with the application server, which is a presentation I did a couple of days ago, is IP mobility. Now, IP mobility can be another way of delivering mobility. It supports mobile phones and the application runs on a mobile phone, but it can actually be used to make calls with no interconnectivity within the phone system at all. And that actually can be very, very strong because it means you don't need VPN connectivity, all that sort of stuff. You can just add the app to the phone, give it a connection through the firewall for the data connection, and it will trigger dials through an IP Edge or a CIX if it's an app server sitting on CIX. So IP mobility, first of all, it supports iOS or Android. So you need to be on one of those two platforms. If you go to the Play Store on Android, for example, you'll find the app in there called IP Mobility, and you've got the ability, obviously, to download it or and install it. And what it gives you is, you can see from these screens here, it gives you the ability to use something called callback, which is the left-hand screen showing you, or it gives you the ability to use call through. Callback is it will actually intercept the dial and it will ask the IP Edge to call the handset, and then it'll ring the customer or the caller you're trying to get hold of. And call through is it will ring a dedicated pilot number on the system, and when the call hits that system, it will recognize the number coming in, and it'll dial the information that's already been supplied from the mobile via the 3G connection, and it'll dial that out. So you actually effectively call straight through the system and call out. It all depends on where the minutes are and who's paying for the minutes as to which one's the best option for those. A lot of the systems now with inclusive minutes and unlimited bandwidth, people start to be less concerned when it's a bring your own device in that way. As I say, there's two ways to dial. One is you can use the app itself, and that's the dial screen of the app on the left-hand side there. You can punch the number in and dial. Or the second option is, with Android, it will intercept a dial, so you don't need to use the dial screen. When you hit a dial in the native dialer, it pops up with that message you can see on the right-hand side saying, did you mean to make this call on the phone, or did you want IP mobility to make the call? It can be set to interrupt and do that anyway, or it can be set to automatically use IP mobility, and that can be a mode you can set. And then very simply, it rings the number out. So features of the callback function is the IP Edge handles the calls, so there's no international charges or no charges going to the actual mobile, because the IP Edge will phone using the LCR that's on the IP Edge itself. That will keep the costs to zero for the user, so it's very much a bring your own device supporting product for the occasional user. So if it's only like 3 or 4 calls a week, why would you be bothered? Why would you worry? You just run it through that way. If you're going to do more than that, then maybe you want to integrate it a bit more. Maybe you put a gateway on the system or other options. So really, IP mobility is ideal for users that have limited need for an extension. They're mobile quite a bit, but they only make the odd phone call. They can pick their voicemails up through IP mobility, and then they can call back. So take a teacher in a school type scenario. That is where it could be ideal to use IP mobility, because you could actually use the teacher's own phone. They can trigger a dial to a parent, for example. They get a call come back, they hit the hash key, the call's made to the parent, and instead of sending the CLI of the mobile that's making the call, the CLI of the school, or it can now be the CLI of an extension, a department, whatever, is sent out with that. So they get the professionalism of it going out in a more formal way. There's an example of the callback, and say it's a couple of button presses, but you dial a number, it intercepts, it rings out, you press the dial button, it rings out. In theory, you get a call coming through, you answer it, hit a hash key, and the call's made to the other end. So there's just a couple of screens that you have to move through to make it. If you're going to use it more regularly, then you would jump to the other way of using it, which would be call through the system, and that would work a lot smoother. The other option you could use for mobility with Wi-Fi is smartphones with SIP clients. Number of smartphones out there with SIP clients. However, what we're finding at the moment is there's a few challenges with using them. Lack of availability to use the VPN is one of the problems that we found. So although it works, it won't find the VPN that you're running on the handset. It will tend to use the native IP address on the handset, in which case it's straight on the internet and it can't find the connection at the other end. So effectively, it doesn't work. Registration timers. Sometimes as you move in and out of data connection, it needs to re-register, but sometimes the data registration timings are too large, so it spends a lot of time unregistered rather than registered. You need to be able to bring them down quite a bit. So that's some of the challenges. Some of the applications challenge the path out and say, do you wish to use the GPM or internet? I found the first time I started playing with it, I put it in my car kit, then went to use a call, and then I got challenged, but I couldn't see that because it was docked under the armrest, and my kit through the car wasn't able to make a call because it was sitting on a screen saying, did you want to do this or that? So again, you have to consider those options when using a phone, which is how they plan to use it as well, or how is it integrated. But one of the devices we are supporting, we've just finished testing, is Brea's Counterpath's Bria product, or Bria 3. Very, very flexible application. The reason I particularly liked it and wanted it certified is because it's very much cross-platform. As you can see there, it's BlackBerry compatible, it's Android compatible, and it's iOS compatible. It's tablet compatible with iPads and Android, and it's also desktop compatible with Mac, Windows, and Linux. You just install that on a handset, Wi-Fi connection on the handset, and it will connect into the system. Or you install a VPN on the handset back to the office, and then you run the product on top of that, and Bria is clever enough to use the VPN path and log in. So I'm able to log my Android Galaxy S4, for example, in via a VPN to the office, and then I just run my handset on top of it. Or if you're a bigger corporate, as a lot of corporates do, and they run their own VPN, effectively called an APN, where you use your company's APN, where all the data path is routed back to your office first before going out on the internet, then ultimately that is a VPN. It's running to the office anyway. That connection should be capable to run Bria. So I have that way of running it through my company's APN, or I can VPN back to the office, run it up, and then I can extension dial straight off the mobile phone. And that's quite a useful product as well. As you can see there, you've got the desktop client running. The desktop client's a bit more expensive. Desktop client's about 50 quid to buy the software for the desktop client, but it's very cost effective on the mobile phone clients, where it's about £5 odd for a license for a single client, and so that's very, very cost effective to run it that way. You just need an endpoint on the system to do that. The other option is if you're running a PC, either a desk phone or a PC-based handset, you could actually run the soft phone on the PC and use Call Manager with the VoIP plugin that you can see there, which emulates a 10-button handset. And that's another very, very simple way to bring someone who's already got a PC with VPN connectivity in to an existing installation. The plugin there, I think, is around the sort of 59, 69 quid mark, depending on CIX or IP Edge. Stick it on an endpoint and headset off the PC, and there's your mobility solution. Just to give you a flavour of what's coming in the futures, because there's a couple of things we're going to add to that as well, which might be of interest. The first of all is, I've shown you Call Manager as it is at the moment. Call Manager is going to mutate or migrate or evolve over the next couple of months into a new product called UC Mobile. And you're getting the first views here of what UC Mobile looks like. It's going to come as desktop, mobile, and tablet. It will also support concurrent licensing. Now that's getting quite important because people don't want to have to pay for a license from a smartphone, a license from a desk phone, a license for another device. So it will support 3 licenses, as in 3 different locations, as long as you're only logging in from one at a time. So that's where UC Mobile will be very good. When you're out and about, it'll use your smartphone. When you come into the office, you can use your PC-based one to log in, and you wouldn't use your smartphone one, obviously. Or you might decide just to use your mobile in the office on Wi-Fi and stay on the UC Mobile client. One of the key things is that it's going to have XMPP presence support. Now, for those of you that have sat in on some of my other webinars, particularly when I talk about the futures and the fact that Federation is going to be one of the key driving technologies coming forward towards the end of this year, XMPP is an open standard. We're going to use it initially to federate between other systems, so CIXs and IP edges, and you'll be able to link the two together and see presence without needing QSIG or Unifier on the ACD or anything like that. It'll just use XMPP to actually federate that presence and be able to show that somebody in another office is on the phone. In this case, it'll show that obviously you're on your mobile and you're on the phone, which will be fantastic. And it will also, for the desktop and the mobile, it will have a VoIP plugin capability as well. So you'll be able to use it for voice if you wish, as well as all the presence. So that will be quite a useful upgrade, should we say, of Call Manager. And that's due probably within the next 3-4 months, somewhere around that sort of timescale. Certainly should be betaing, if not before that. And then there's some additional ones that you may or may not be aware of. We are looking at SIP soft phone support. I talked about some of the challenges earlier on, but we are looking at additional SIP soft phones. But we started off with Counterparts Bria, and let's get that certified, which we now have. So now we can start looking at others. But the other one that's going to be interesting is GoConverse Mobile. We've done a lot with GoConverse recently, having launched it. Desktop client is there. Very nice to integrate. Just launched, obviously, SIMS integration through it. So that's ideal for schools now, where administrators can pop directly from SIMS, which is great. The next stage for us will be to go mobile with it, so you'll be able to run the application on a mobile phone. And you've got screenshots there, for example, of me using it on my Android-based mobile phone. That's my GoConverse history. The great thing is on the middle screenshot, you get the choice of using it in desk phone mode or mobile mode. Now, if I'm using it in desk phone mode, I can use the handset, I can do all the various bits and pieces, but when I click to dial, my desk phone will dial. So it's actually now making the handset, the mobile phone, a remote control for the desk phone. The reason most people use their mobile phone, and particularly when they're in their office, they use their mobile phone for making most of the calls, is because it's easy. I look it up, it's on my mobile, oh, I need to dial it, oh, I just press dial on that. But if you can just press dial on that but trigger it from the desk phone, suddenly you've integrated the mobile and the contacts and the synchronization from Exchange and everything as a way then of driving the number out. For you as a reseller, this keeps the calls on your minutes that you're connecting to the phone system, rather than allowing it to drift out to the mobile vendor who's supplying the minutes obviously on the mobile SIM. So I would very much see expanding GoConverse through to mobile as being key to retain more revenue for you as resellers, but also then to make the desk phone on the desk appear a lot more functional to the customer, because you're connecting their mobile to that desk phone and you're twinning the devices in that way. And you can see the call history function, for example, on the right-hand side. I can go to my mobile and I can see all calls in and out that went through my system. And I can choose to ring somebody back from that extension. So it's quite a clever way of managing calls using a mobile phone to trigger from the desk phone. And that, again, should be probably around the April-May time. You can see the dates on the right-hand side. We've been looking at it internally and testing it for quite a while, actually, and it's now getting to the point where for us it's ready to go. The last one is just to show you something we're starting to work on as well, which is how do you make a tablet useful as a mobile device. And very much just making a tablet more functional in its current format is the way we're looking at it. Some other vendors have looked at a specific tablet and connected it to the handset, to the system, and then charge a lot of money to use it as effectively a soft phone sitting on a tablet. As here's a new handset, you don't need your old handset anymore. We're going slightly differently and saying actually all you need to do is add some connectivity to a tablet, as in how do you get the voice path through to the user, and somebody can use their tablet then, if they wish, with UC Mobile, which is what's showing on that screen at the moment. So you've got various options there of running a headset like I am at the moment, running my Savvy headset off a tablet, and effectively I carry my handset around. It's docked because it needs to dock to charge, but you don't need to dock it for anything else. So why have it tethered to some device that includes a handset as well, when really we're all about wireless? So a simple headset off the tablet in that way with a useful soft phone functionality on the tablet. You could have a hardwired USB Bluetooth speaker that provides you with the mic and speaker from it. Or you could go to a Jabra type of product on the left-hand side there. I can't remember what the product is I've got, but I've got a Bluetooth handset that's sitting in the charging bay. I just pick the handset up like I'm picking up any other call, and it answers the phone call again on the tablet. So again, putting Bria on the tablet or UC Mobile, you can do it. It's just a case of how the user wants to work. I think what we need to think is outside of the box there, which is how do users want to work? Well, they want to be flexible. They want to be mobile. They don't necessarily want to be tied to a physical bit of cable that happens to be connected through a USB port to their tablet. So a wireless device connected to their tablet they can roam around the office with gives them the mobility they need. And hence, obviously, it's in this presentation on mobility. That, in sort of 20 minutes or so, is an overview of where we currently are with mobility options. Some of them, obviously, Toshiba branded. Some of them are from other vendors because they've got products that close the gaps that we have in our product range. And I think that's actually very, very positive because they're best-of-breed products. They work very well with our system, and it's a case of you finding out when you're selling to customers which solution they want and then plugging the right product in to that solution to give the customer what they need. So I'd like to thank you for attending this webinar. So I've got a number of others running, so hopefully I'll see you later on this week when I'm doing an IP mobility one, for example, and I'll show you actual live screenshots and things of IP mobility running on an Android handset and how you would use some of the functionality I talked about earlier on. So I'd like to thank you very much and look forward to seeing you later on in the week. Thank you.